Record. All right, it's
Wow,
Thursday
that's a
night.
long second.
Oh, did I start too soon?
Oh, I don't know. No, I think you're good. I'm the one. I'm looking at my other screen. It's like 30-second delay.
Yeah, don't do that, Bob. All right, we are Thursday night. Obviously, trying something a little new on Bob's end. I think it will all work out. Thursday night, Las Vegas Triathlon Club member spotlight, and this is going to be a fun one. I'm John Mercer, president of the Las Vegas Tri Club. I've got co-host Mr. Bob Gamble, trying something
Yeah,
new
howdy,
tonight.
folks.
Yeah, don't
I'm
try
doing I'm
something
doing
new
fine,
on
thank you.
Wednesday.
I just finished up a good workout.
Yeah, there you
Like
go.
I'm still feeling pretty good.
That's right. You ran from your trainer down to here,
That's
so that's
right.
good. And tonight's going to be a fun member spotlight because we get to do a spotlight for one of our graduate students at University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Kyle Peterson, who also works as a funded graduate student at Lake Las Vegas Sport Club. Hey, Kyle, how's it going?
Good. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. And Kyle has come down and started his grad program last fall. So you're in your second. Oh my goodness, I should know this. I'm your advisor.
It's been 1 year.
He's in his second year of the grad program, and it's really been neat to get him engaged in the triathlon community and into triathlon. And it's going to be fun hearing his story. Bob, before I get too far and steal too much of Bob's material, I'm going to turn it over to Bob for the official introduction.
Well, I don't have a lot of material because Kyle is a brand new. He's new to the club. He just joined the club in the beginning of this year, and he's done one of our events, done the aqua bike. Correct, Kyle? Done the
Yep.
aqua
And
bike.
the sprint before that.
And the sprint triathlon before that. And one thing that's I'm going to look forward to talking to Kyle about is, what it's like working with John as his advisor. John as
No, we're
his
not covering
advisor.
that. That's off limits.
Yeah, we'll get a critique of John here, but no, Kyle did sports his entire life, and actually did some. And we'll talk about this more in the rest of the interview. But Kyle did some triathlons back early. When you were only like 10, 12, 14 years old, and then took a hiatus and came back and got back into it. Probably John helped him with that a little bit, getting back into it. But it's always great having, and he's a rookie as an adult in his triathlons. So, and he's working on his master's in kinesiology.
Yep.
In kinesiology. So, and this is always something that's fascinated me. So I look forward to talking to him and always glean some more information about him. So if you can throw anything out there that's going to help me or us, the club, the rest of the folks, you by all means do it. You're at the cutting edge of all of our, all of the research right now. So it's good to have you here with us tonight, Kyle.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
And get us started. How did you get back into triathlon and as an adult there?
So let's see, a year ago, right, I moved out here and I knew that John was into triathlon, who wouldn't, right? And so I, had this idea, it'd be a good opportunity to get back and try out triathlon again as an adult. And I spent the last 5 years in Utah, and there's a lot of bike racing up there, but not a lot of triathlons. For good reason. The water is very cold in their reservoirs, and no one wants to swim in those. So, it was good to get back and try it out, this year being my first year sort of back in the sport.
And there's a lot of hills up there too. Maybe you thought you were going to get rid of them, but no, there's still hills here.
Oh yeah. I love hills, but
good. So do I.
Yeah. I like mountains too. Less mountains out here, but we have Kyle Canyon and Lee Canyon,
and that was named after you, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Named after
best road in Vegas.
Yeah. And I understand cycling is your strength, so you enjoy the hills.
Definitely. And I'm more of a climber than a sprinter. I'd say the triathlon style cycling is tough for me. Seated flat is not my strong suit, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. And you like the hills and the power output and the sprints and climbing.
Yeah, so I, originally I started cycling and mountain biking. So in mountain biking, it's all hills and sprints, and you're out of the saddle more than you're seated. So that's, I feel at home in the mountains climbing.
Well, John, we're going to have to get a mountain bike triathlon or duathlon here.
Yeah,
'Cause-
we've talked about doing a test event and even doing it out at Lake Las Vegas, and Kyle was helping us get that swim run going at Lake Las Vegas. So that's neat. But Kyle, I want to hear more about the story of your first triathlon as a youth. So tell us about getting into triathlon originally.
So originally it was sort of just a summer activity, like summer camp. So, I grew up in Santa Cruz, California. Um, Beautiful place, great summers. And so early on, really young, I started doing junior lifeguards there. In coastal areas. It's a common program across the nation where it's sort of like a summer camp, right? And as you get older, it has more to do with lifeguarding and maybe becoming a beach lifeguard. So that was where I spend all my summers, and there you're just swimming and running all day. We do run, swim, runs, or run, swim, run, swim, run, swim, run, swim, as long as you want runs, and then, or paddles and all kinds of activities. And so that was sort of like my intro into sort of endurance sport. I didn't really know it as that at the time. And then when I was
How many of
around,
you were doing that at the time? Like what size group was it that?
so just in the Santa Cruz area, there were three main different programs at three different beaches just in that area. They were all, it's tricky. So it's all divided by age group, and then they would have a morning and an afternoon.
Got it.
So throughout the whole area, thousands of kids. It was what everyone did. Like
Wow.
probably at least half of the kids that lived in all of Santa Cruz, Capitola, all those cities were doing this junior lifeguards program. All my friends were. And so that was just what you did during the summer. And so, yeah, you just get into running and swimming, and we didn't have any instruction on any of that. I swam with my head out of the water for years.
Lifeguard,
Literally.
you had to keep your eye on the.
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, why do I need to put my head in the water anyway? I didn't like goggles because they would fog up or get water in them. So if you keep your head out of the water, you don't need goggles. In the ocean, you don't want to. Putting your head in the water is scary because you look down and just see shadows and think about what could be there. And so
Yeah, if you don't see it, it's not there, right?
exactly. Yeah. You just hope you don't feel it. Then you hit a piece of seaweed and everyone starts freaking out. As little kids, it was like the funnest thing you could possibly do, for
Oh,
sure.
that's great. And so your family was doing triathlons, or mostly just your dad at the point?
So just my dad got into sport, endurance sport, and doing runs. And so, early on in my childhood memories of going to marathons with my dad and, cheering him on at the finish line. And then he got into triathlon and started doing the Santa Cruz triathlon, which originally was a sprint triathlon. And so then I was like, well, what else am I going to do on a Saturday? My dad's doing the triathlon. Instead of sitting on the sidelines, I'm going to do it. So I was just a little kid and, would just show up, do the sprint triathlon on my mom's mountain bike.
All
I
right.
would borrow her mountain bike. And in my third or fourth year, the results are out there and you can find them. Me doing a sprint triathlon in over 3 hours with 15-minute transitions, because I completely changed all my, with swim and board shorts, and then wrap a towel around myself and put on my running clothes and then ride in my running clothes. And then, my bike to run transition you'd think would be faster because I was wearing the same clothes, but for some reason it's still like 15 minutes. I didn't know. I was probably eating a sandwich in transition. I don't
Dried
know.
your hair, had a sandwich, right?
Exactly. My transition, I had everything laid out, all the, I didn't know. I wasn't trying to race. I wasn't going for time. I was the only kid in my age group in every triathlon I did. It was just adults, and it was fun. It was, usually on the run, I would see my dad, and we'd run together for a little bit. And, the runs were always out and back on West Cliff, which anyone that's been to Santa Cruz, as a runner has definitely done that run. I mean, it's just a classic along the cliffs, the coast. It's beautiful. And then eventually that triathlon moved to an Olympic distance. And these days they're still doing it as an Olympic distance. Yeah, that was sort of my experience in triathlon as a kid. It was just this fun summer activity. I do
Yeah.
one, sometimes two triathlons each summer.
Now,
Sprinter Olympic.
I want to expound on that a little bit. When you first got started and you were doing it because you were, racing with your dad and you're just doing it for fun, and you're on a mountain bike and weren't rushing through transitions. How did that set you up, your attitude up for doing triathlons in the future? Do you think it was better than if you had gone like crazy competitive right from the start? I think it was better getting started that way.
It definitely, I would say, like, today I'm comfortable with it, with transition, with all of that, with all of the gear for 3 sports. I'm very comfortable with that, and the complexity of it doesn't stress me out. Whereas I can see, it could be very stressful for me if I was just getting into it now without that experience.
And if you're going hard, right? You're trying to compete.
Yeah,
right
exactly. If I was going for time, it would have been a different experience. I mean, there was even one year where the run where we parked was halfway through the run route. You should never do that, because I just stopped at the car and was like, okay, my race is done. Because running was my least favorite sport as a kid. I would walk run it, and I was just have to survive the run. I love the swim, love the bike, just because it was fun. And the run, I was like, just make it over. And so, yeah, that was one year where I did not finish a sprint triathlon, because just jumped in the car, because it wasn't about the race. It was about the experience and just having fun.
It's like, that's enough. I'm done. Here's my car. Let's go.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, Bob, I'm glad you picked up on that, because I picked up on that too. I really like that. And I like this idea of, it was about the experience as a youth triathlete. I think that's so important. And it's really great to hear your story in that, you're just trying to figure it out and your parents let you figure it out. And that's okay. It's okay to, to make mistakes as a kid and then enjoy the experience itself for what it is. And so
That's like
that's really neat to hear.
and that's in your actual job description when you're a young, get working it out. It's like, you make mistakes, learn
Yeah.
from them. It's like, that's what you're supposed to do. So I'm really thrilled that you did that.
All right, so now tell us about, as an adult, tell us about your triathlon, getting back into it.
Well, so I would say it has more to do, like, as far as cycling goes, that's still like my primary sport.
Yep.
So getting back into the training or really, I mean, because I wasn't necessarily training for running or swimming back then, I was just doing it for fun. So training for those sports has been the biggest change, right? Going for a run with a purpose in mind for, training and tracking pacing has been very different. And it's, while it is an endurance activity, cycling, I can go out and ride for 2 to 3 hours very comfortably. A run over an hour for me is a struggle.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, you'd think, oh, no matter how slow I go, that's a real struggle for me to run for an hour, just because I've never really done that kind of endurance training for running. Swimming, similar. I mean, learning how to swim and breathe and proper technique has been tricky, but fun. I mean, I love swimming. I would say it sort of comes naturally to me from people that see me swimming and are like, oh, you look good. I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying my best to not sink, but swimming is one of those activities that for me, from the running and cycling, where you're really, it feels like you can always push harder. Well, with swimming, pushing harder doesn't necessarily mean you're faster, right?
Oh, that's so smart. I'm so glad you're figuring that out.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just cruise on the swim and hope I can, make it out with a good time.
Yeah.
make it out, without exhausting myself too much. And so that it's been a good learning experience, just kind of getting into the training of 3 sports versus 1. And over the past 5 years, really with my undergrad and everything, I started training with cycling a lot less. So it's nice that, I have the time, it's not like I went from ton of cycling training to having to cut my cycling training. No, I've just kind of added in, which has been fun to try to balance that and adding in more training.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, super good tip for everyone is that swimming harder does not necessarily mean swimming faster. That alone is a really good tip and neat to hear this. All right, well now walk us through your triathlon.
What do you mean? Like,
All right, so when you obviously had the triathlon experience as a youth, but now you're standing on the start line as a young man, a collegiate athlete. Uh, what's it like? What was it like standing on the start line? Did it bring back memories of the youth experience?
oh yeah. So, I mean, I have a lot of memories of in Santa Cruz, we get the morning fog. And so most start lines, the young kids go first in those sprints. And so almost every race that I did as a kid, you're standing at the start line for a long time until the fog clears and they can start the race. So
Uh,
with no visibility, they can't start it. So sometimes we'd be standing there in this corral on the beach for an hour,
oh, right, right.
and you're just sitting there waiting for the race to start. And I didn't use a wetsuit when I was a kid. It was cold. So I was just there in board shorts with a towel over me, trying to stay warm, maybe a swim cap if they gave you one for the race. And so now, Lake Mead, we've been doing starts in the water, which kind of kind of makes me a little bit nervous because I'm used to starting on land, where at least, I'm
Yeah,
like, if we're sitting here for a while, I'm going to get cold. Like, I don't want to
yeah.
be still, like, I want to go, and so that's a little different. And that definitely that, the memories of, back when I
Yeah.
was younger, starting a triathlon comes back, and there's a little bit of nerves there, but then it's like, well, I've been here before,
Hmm.
it's, that's kind of reassuring.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, that's interesting that the start format is different, and yeah, I can see that in Santa Cruz, waiting for the sighting to be able to clear, so the lifeguard and everyone can see people and everyone's safe. Uh, Now, the race that you did here, was that the day that we had that smoke? No, that was oh, it
The
was?
aqua bike was the smoky
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
Got a
yeah.
question for you, Kyle. When you're starting, when you were in Santa Cruz, was everything on a beach start? Was there sand?
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
See,
sandy beach starts.
yeah, we can't do that here because if we started on shore and said, okay, everybody break for the water, it's like you're gonna have broken ankles, cut feet, and then
Oh
if
yeah,
anybody
yeah.
dives in, you don't know what you're gonna hit. So yeah,
I know.
you
I'm
just can't.
grateful for the water starts.
Yeah,
Oh
you
yeah.
can't do it here.
It's called Boulder Beach for a reason.
Yeah, that's right.
All
That's
right,
right.
so now you get the swim done, you get into a groove, and you're getting out, getting on your bike. Does that bring back memories, or does that bring back, okay, I'm comfortable on the bike, I'm ready to go?
I mean, I would say it's more about don't go too hard. Right out of the start, for me on the bike, it's like, you get the nerves, and for me, it's all just excitement to be on the bike.
Hmm.
Finally I'm on the bike. Woohoo, let's go. Don't immediately take my heart rate to, max, right? That's the trick. So I don't blow everything out right away.
Yeah.
So making a slow build, which especially out of Boulder Beach, with that climb up the hill, it is so easy. The first sprint try, 100%, I went straight to maximum. I looked at
Yeah.
my power data afterwards and was like, what was I doing? Because you don't even realize it. Going
No,
from
you don't.
transition,
No,
you
you don't.
catch your breath and all the adrenaline's going, and then you get on the bike and you just want to go, like all out, go, stand up. And aqua bike, it was good to teach myself to manage that, look at the power meter, and just
Hmm.
keep it controlled for at least that first climb. Then once I'm out on the road, then I can play around with really pushing it. But um, yeah,
That's
and
interesting.
then
You actually gauge your intensity going up that hill with your power meter. Do you have to hold back quite a bit?
yeah, because I mean, like for me right now, If I'm pushing over 200 watts, it's not going to last for very long. So like the aqua bike, I was looking at my power meter, and I think the first time I looked down, I was at like 270. I was like, nope, like, and I felt fine though. It felt like I was at 50
I know
watts.
it feels
You know?
fine. It's like, and you
Yeah.
look down and you're only doing 10 miles an hour at 270 watts. It's like,
Well, yeah, that's the thing, was like it messes with your head. And I know, you know, from a cycling background, if you can push it on the hills and keep the power up on the hills, it pays off on the flats and on the descents. As far as, you know, the sort of effort to payoff ratio
up to a point.
times. Exactly. Yeah. Up to a point. So it's one of those where like, I'm okay with pushing it to my limit or to what I think I should do or what I should average for the whole bike at that point, but I don't want to go drastically over that. And
Sounds like you got it. You got the science of it dialed in pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've had so much experience on the bike and doing time trials and races, mountain bike racing, especially. Road racing is a little different. Usually it's a really mellow start for most road races. Whereas mountain biking, it's all out right at the start. You give it everything you have at the start, which is tricky because you have to pretty much give it everything you got to get positioning, because then you're on a single track trail and
That's
passing
right. You can't
becomes.
pass as well.
And that's where, you know, you force a pass and then crashing happens, right? So doing everything you can to be in that front group on the first lap of a mountain bike race is like, if you can finish the first lap in the front group, you have a huge chance of winning. Whereas if you don't finish the first lap in the front group, you have almost no chance of winning. So, you know, it's tricky where going from that to road cycling, where you have pretty mellow starts. You know, I've done a few time trials where I go 100% right out of the gate and then end up throwing up within the first 100 yards of the time trial or something, you know, because you just push it way too hard. So I mean, all of that just been good experience, and then incorporating it into the triathlon, because coming out of the swim, at least for me, you know, going from horizontal to vertical, your mind's kind of jumbled, you're maybe a little dizzy. You don't necessarily think as clearly. So having some experience to look back on, or just at least, you know, to remember, you know, knowing that it's not going to pay off if you know, go too hard right out of the gate.
I'm so glad you're talking as you are, because if there's we've got a lot of new people just getting started in the club, and everything you're saying is so spot on. You know, as far as is they're so valuable. You know, as far as you know, crashing and burning whenever you go out there too hard. You know, you do that first 3/4 mile coming out of Boulder Beach. It's like yeah, your whole race is just like just suffering for the next 40 minutes. You know, so.
Yeah,
No, I'm glad to hear it. It sounds like you're getting things figured out pretty good.
and what's really neat, and you're spot on, Bob. What I really like is that Kyle may be a new triathlete, but he's not a new athlete.
Athlete, that's right.
And what I really like hearing, Kyle, is how you're pulling the knowledge from your other sport, cycling and mountain biking, and applying that to triathlon. I think that's a great message for people to hear, is that because they can pull from the knowledge from other sports that they've been doing. All right, so now you come down the hill, you get off your bike and onto your favorite sport, running. Tell us
And then the
about
goal is to just run.
tell us about how the run went on this return to triathlon.
Yeah, so you know, I started doing some running in Utah when I was living there, just trail running,
Yep.
just for fun, just to mix it up, do something other than cycling, because we have some really great trails for running out there. So I've had a little bit of experience just in running and getting, you know, some running legs, because it's not easy going from cycling is the only activity you ever do to trying to run. I mean, it was the hardest thing to just try to run consistently for a mile or for 2 miles. And I've always sort of gauged, this is a weird thing, but I've always sort of gauged my fitness, even when I was cycling, of like, can I get up right now and run a mile? Like just finish a mile. And like, that would be like, if I feel confident I can get up and run a mile, then I'm strong, I'm maybe recovered from a workout, or I'm in good, physical condition. I don't know why. It's just always been a thought in my mind. But when you're just doing cycling, sometimes you question that and you're like, well, yeah, I can get up and ride 50 miles, no problem. Run a mile, I don't know. I might have to walk, And
Especially
so
after you're done riding at 50 miles.
exactly. And so that's even more daunting of like,
Yeah.
you do this big ride where for me, it's where I want to push it, where I want to really, push my limits. And then I have to run. Well, the fear of walking is there, which for me, I had to really, the start of this year and last winter, I spent a lot of time hiking and doing running. Should have been biking more probably, but I don't know, running a lot through Red Rocks, and really had to train myself how to run slow because I didn't know how to run a 10 or 11-minute mile. Like I couldn't run it. Like it was really hard for me to run at a really slow
It's
pace.
awkward. It's just awkward when you're used to running fast.
But when you force yourself to do it, what I learned when I forced myself to do it, all of a sudden, after a few weeks of forcing myself to run slow and only run slow, I could run slow forever. It felt like, right? It felt like all of a sudden I could run at this pace for 30 minutes, which for me to run nonstop for 30 minutes was this huge accomplishment in my mind. And it was like, oh, wait, I could actually do a triathlon and not walk. I was confident that I could not have to walk or not, and it's that it's always, for me at least, was always like, oh, at the turnaround, right? You slow down at the turnaround and you start walking for a few steps and then you just keep walking and never start running again, right? Or if there was a feed station, right? It's that fear of like, what if I walk to get water or to take a drink?
And I just don't want to start again.
Yeah, or there's some barrier, whether it's mental or physical, where I just like feel like I can't start running again. And so now I at least know like I can start running again, at least slow, right? And so now I can start working on the speed, and I've been slowly sort of increasing the speed for short periods, playing around with running at faster speeds. But something I didn't mention was that going from cycling to running, I would run as slow as I could, and my heart rate would be max. I would be like, my heart rate just through the roof. And that was probably one indication that I should have run even slower. But it was so hard to run slower. I felt like, I should be able to run at this pace. I should, I can run a 7-minute mile. I should be able to run a 7-minute mile forever, right? Because cycling, I feel like, the intensity is not as high as I would be on the bike. At the bike, this intensity, I would be fine for, doing this for a couple hours. But then you get on start running and my heart rate would just be so high. Whereas now finally I can run and keep a heart rate that's in the moderate to endurance zone, which.
And you have to run with a different style, with a different technique. I mean, it's like it's a different stride and cadence and everything for the efficiency of it. Sounds like you're getting that figured out.
Yeah. And, funny enough, I was lucky in that in all the sports that I did as a kid, I always had really good coaches, which now I'm realizing more and more now than I did then. For instance, in middle school, I did cross country, and I had this cross country coach that would like teach us how to run. And we do these drills where we sort of start just standing in place and then lean forward until we feel like we have to step out to catch ourselves. And he's like, just run like that. Like you're always, and it was sort of this way to teach us how to run more on top of your feet as opposed to with your heels slapping out in front of you, or and it was like this technique that I still today remember. And you go, okay, if I'm feeling fatigue or I feel like my form's breaking down, I have at least have something that I can go back to and say, let me try this and try something just to change up the stride, go back to something that feels familiar, I guess.
I love this because Kyle, you're very analytical.
I was just going to say that's the word that came to me.
Yeah, and how you're looking at this, and that's why you're a good grad student, and why you're in the grad program, because it's a really neat for me to sit back and hear you really give this insight about yourself from a very objective perspective. So I'm interested in, we're almost out of time here. I'm interested in your goals for 2021 for endurance sports or anything you're doing?
Well, I always like setting goals that seem impossible to achieve. So, it's like you think of all these things like, oh, I want to do, I think at the beginning of this year, I was like, I want to do an Ironman, right? Full distance. Now I'm like, let me just try to do an Olympic, right? But slowly, I might be doing, I haven't decided yet if I'm going to be able to do the Coco Pelli try.
Yeah.
So right now, my goals are really focused around just finishing events, not time
Yep.
related, finishing events, and then having mini goals throughout, right? Finishing a Olympic try without walking the run, basically feeling, without collapsing at the finish or feeling like I need to collapse at the finish, right? Finishing it with, some maybe a little bit left even is okay for me. That would be great, right? Not completely draining myself where I need a lot of recovery just to, feel like I'm normal again.
Yeah.
Have you registered for any races this fall?
I'm registered for the Las Vegas Tri.
Good for you.
So I'll be doing that. Yep, the long distance.
Which one? What do you mean the long distance?
Or what is it? I forget.
Close to a half Ironman.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one. Close to a half, I think, right? It's a little bit less. So
48 mile bike.
Yeah.
And it's a 12 something run. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the run I'm worried about on that, of course. But yeah, doing that, maybe the Coco Pelli, try in St. George in a week.
Yep.
And then we'll see from there. I was looking at maybe a couple half Ironmans going on around, but like later this winter. But there's a lot of cost, look at the cost to just register when it's over $300 just for the registration fee.
Yeah.
And then you have to travel.
Yeah.
It's where I don't know that I'm at a point where I feel motivated to do that kind of investment in a race. I when I think about that, I'm more motivated to just go out and have a really big training day, or to go do a big group ride, or do something, go on a hike with family or friends or something, more so than that, just because I don't have a lot of aspirations as far as pushing winning anything, right? That's not really.
And that's great, and that's fantastic. I mean, I really like hearing your goals of completing events. I mean, that's important and that's really good. But I know what you mean, that the financial aspect of some of these races is pretty high. But that's why we have a collegiate membership now for our Las Vegas Tri Club. At least we get those in, and so that's neat that you're one of our first collegiate members of the club too. So that's a groundbreaking right there.
Oh yeah, I think every college student should join and try it, right? There's nothing, no matter who you are, whatever your fitness level is, it's always worth giving it a try.
Yeah. And that
pun not intended, but
that's cost effective. And so, Kyle, this has been great talking with you.
Sure has.
I talk with you on a regular basis, but I really enjoy hearing this background in multi-sport from your Santa Cruz days to now. And I also know it's really great that, and I know this, we haven't gotten to this, but you get back to community and you lead bike rides out at Lake Las Vegas, and that's really neat to see you doing that. And I'm really just hearing a real, passion for, being active and having, being part of events and training. And that's really healthy, especially as a grad student, because you got to have that work balance.
Yeah.
Something that I was really pleased to see, and it impressed me, is how analytical and smart you are about your training. And it's fantastic to have somebody like you in the club with that kind of mind to study and explore and experiment and research that kind of stuff. So it's really great having you in the club, and great talking to you tonight too.
Yeah. Love being here. And, I will say, as analytical as I am about everything, I'm my own coach and I don't have a training plan. So I'm not that, if my coach says I can take the day off, I take the day off.
There you go. I love it.
That's
Kyle,
right.
It's a real pleasure talking with you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure having you on, Kyle.